Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another show. My name is Jeremy, and as always, I want to thank you very much for spending some time with me today. And actually, again, us today have another guest today that I am super excited to bring on, and really excited about the topic. I think it's something that I need to hear, and I really think it's something that there are a lot of people in the fire service that kind of need some help in this area. So, without anything further, my guest today is Corley Moore. He is a battalion chief in Moore, Oklahoma, and runs a very awesome website, Firehouse Vigilance. He got a web page that he publishes quite a few articles and Instagram and Facebook pages. So I'll let him kind of give a little bio and we'll get into what we're talking about.
Thank you, Jeremy, for having me on, and congrats on Crew First Culture and the podcast. It's exciting watching it grow. So I wanted to say that right off the get-go. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
And Corley Moore, Firehouse Vigilance, Moore Fire Department, no relation. I tell people the names on the trucks, but I get a lot of sometimes people ask me, is it like Facebook Fire Department? Because it's more Fire Department. But I'm like, no, it's a real place. We're known basically for getting run over by tornadoes.
Yeah.
But yeah, 23 years there. And I just love sharing passion for the fire service and trying, my whole purpose in life is to, it's the greatest job on earth. So keeping people plugged into that is what I love doing. So anyway, that's kind of who I am and what I do. That's why Firehouse Vigilance exists.
That's awesome. So before we get started, I want to say this. Part of the reason I'm so excited to have you on is that you have done a lot of good for me, and mostly probably you don't even know, but you've kind of helped me along my journey, helped me to get into this understanding of podcasts, and you've published some articles of mine, and I just want to say thank you very much for what you've done to kind of get me going and leading me in the right direction. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for that. The whole thing about Firehouse Vigilance that blows my mind is how many passionate people out there are willing to share their passion. And I know we're probably going to overuse that word today, but it's great.
Yes.
Just like your articles, man. It's great. I'm humbled to be able to do that. Does that make sense? So.
Oh yeah. And that's kind of what the biggest thing that I enjoy about what I'm doing is that it gives me the feeling that I'm a part of something bigger than me. And that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
I'm just a tool in the, whatever the fire service, and hopefully I'm being used to do as much good as I can. So I know you're kind of on the same page of that.
Now, before we get going, I want to say one thing before you start.
Yep.
And it is this right here, which I'm very pumped about. I don't know if you can see it much, but it says not for resale, because I've not told anybody yet, but my book will become out in 10 days. I'm going to start hyping it. So this is the first place I've publicly announced Challenger Leadership.
All right.
Anyway, so I thought I wanted to
So, well, go ahead, since you brought it up. So where is that going to be available, and when? And
it's going to be available on Amazon and basically anywhere you can get the book. Amazon will probably be the biggest one. Of course, through Firehouse Vigilance itself. July 11th is my target date for the actual being available. But anyway, like I said, it's just a teaser. It's pretty cool. It's a book designed for people who aren't readers. Firefighters, as a general rule, aren't readers, And so it's designed more like dedicate 5 minutes of your day towards reading a page out of the book. That's it, man. And
awesome.
It's I'm excited. I'll hype it more in the future, but this is the first place I got to announce it. So
I appreciate that. Appreciate the chance to get it out. And towards the end, I'll let you kind of plug it more for sure.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
So really this is where we're going today. And it's how do we dig into these people that have lost their passion, maybe have never had the passion for the job or their drive to really get better every day and be inspired to do good things. That's something that, like I said earlier, I'm very interested to just soak up as much as I can from anybody out there. And so that's kind of our topic. And another reason I've asked you on for this is the first time we met, I'm pretty sure you kind of described yourself as a not a very motivated firefighter when you were younger, and is that correct?
Yeah, that would be very, I got on very young. I'll put it that way. And I was
Okay.
very immature, and I did not appreciate the job.
I got you. Yep.
So.
Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going is I think you're gonna, of course, you've got your experience just time on and through the ranks and all that, but also having that personal experience of taking it for granted and you know, whatever comes along with that, and then building up a passion that has created so many good things. And so that is why I really wanted to have you on for this topic, is because I think you're going to add just a lot of different kind of angles on it. So just, and like we talked about earlier, everybody out there that's heard any of my shows before knows I don't have a script on this. We're just going to kind of jump into it, and it's going to go where it goes. And I know good things will come of it. So just kind of hang on and we'll get there sooner or later.
Right on,
but
right on.
What do you have any just kind of just opening thoughts on the whole deal, and what? So let's attack it from the, I guess we need a starting point at least. So say we're talking about just the demographic of your firefighters that have been on, you know, whatever amount of time, but they're not new. They've had some passion in the past. They've lost it. The environment that we're living in nowadays has kind of stripped a lot of people of that. Do you have any ideas of kind of how we can go about getting that back?
Man, that's a really one of those questions that I think we'll be having in the fire service. It's not new, and we'll have it 100 years from now. And it's
Yep.
What do you do when people lose that passion? And for me, I don't know of any rookies that ever get hired that don't have a passion for wanting to save lives and property and make a difference. You know, they come in fired up and ready to go. I think
Yep.
very few accept. And one thing I'll say is, when I say always and never, don't hold me to it. I mean, in the general sense of the
Yes.
99% of the time. So, but I think almost every rookie comes in and is fired up, ready to go. And what destroys that over time is toxic cultures and toxic leadership. And almost, I would say, like, without fail, that is what destroys that passion through time. And we're unique in the fire service in the fact that we have one mission throughout the entire fire service: save lives and property. It can be easily defined. Now, there's nuances to it through the different departments and things like that, but that's something that's, like, I don't even know if law enforcement can boil it down, or the military even, at that simple. I mean, mothers will hand us their most precious thing and say, please make a difference. They'll people, strangers, invite us into their houses every day and say, please make a
Complete
difference.
trust. Yeah.
And it's just, I think that losing sight of that right there is the real discussion. How do people lose sight of that? And that's really the starting point of the discussion. Like, even the 10-year guy, like you say, the guy that used to be, and now he's 10 toes up, would rather take a nap all day than stretch hose or get ready or train or insert whatever.
Yeah.
And you got to dig in and say, how did he lose sight of why we're here?
I think you're kind of headed exactly where I would be headed with the whole leadership and that direction, because just thinking just personally through my career, and like I've stated on here before, is I've been on 18 years. I've had a roller coaster of a career myself. You know, I started out very, very motivated and just wanted to be a part of everything and did everything and went to as many classes as I could and conferences and this and that. And looking back at the times that during the low times, I could specifically point to me being placed under leadership that I hate is a strong word, but I very much disliked the leadership I was under at that time. And I think, I mean, if you were to pinpoint anything, just trying to be generic and really easy, that's a very, very easy place to go right there for sure.
For sure. And I want to be extremely clear out the gate. And that is, even when I talk about my youth and my early years as a firefighter, that nothing excuses personal responsibility or your ownership of your own actions. So no matter the leader, no matter anything like that, it's still your choice how you're going to approach the job each and every day. And nothing excuses that. Now, I think it's key when a good leader's in place, it makes it so much easier to stay fired up and stay passionate. So anyway, I wanted to clarify that I'm not abdicating.
No, I appreciate that. That's something that, I think should probably be said anytime things are like this or talked about. Is just like you tell your kids, when they say, he made me do it. No, you made the choice to do it.
That's Frank Viscuso, his book, Step Up and Lead. He talks about, if you can lead one, you can lead many, but if you can't lead one, you can't lead any. And that's where it starts. You start with leading yourself. And so the leadership starts with yourself and keeping that passion. Okay. So that caveat out of the way, I didn't want to.
No, that's a big thing to say. I appreciate it. So kind of let us in on what was the turnaround for you. Is there any, is it something specific? Is it something you can nail down as to what kind of turned around your passion and drive?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I've thought about it a lot, obviously. Maturing is a big thing. I got on young. I was 19 years old when I hired on. And so just maturing and realizing that I didn't know everything was a huge, huge first step. I had a lot of solid mentors invest a lot of time into me over the years. A lot of good chiefs, a lot of good company officers who invested a lot in a kid who didn't deserve it, And so, and then promoting, I got lucky enough to promote to driver, and that wasn't really a turning point so much as when I made company officer. And that's when the responsibility combined with the maturity really hits you, and you're like, holy, I now make the call on whether these guys crawl in that window or whether we go inside, or, and I wasn't knowledgeable enough. I hadn't done enough to prepare myself for that position. And so it was like a scramble to make up for lost time. Yeah. And that was the responsibility combined with maturity, combined with wanting to excel at the position. So and again, I could never say enough thank you to the people who invested in my development, my mentors. Yeah. I would try to list them, but the list is, Scott Lance, battalion chief at Moore Fire Department currently, is probably my number one mentor who's invested most time. If I tried to name them all, and then things like Fit to Fight Fire, the podcast, when I first heard that, would you want you rescuing you, that mantra, that was like a gut punch. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of Pride and Ownership by Rick Lasky, another book that really, and there's so much that if I tried to go into it, I would just keep thinking of other things that impacted it. Yeah.
No, I think that's cool. It's like everybody's different, obviously. Everybody's got different personalities, and things speak differently to everybody. And so that's kind of the challenge of leadership is trying to figure out how to reach each individual and what it takes to do that. And so
that makes them tick. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's definitely.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I really don't think anybody comes to this job ever and says, I want to suck today. I just don't think that happens. No. And so even me in my immature, think I knew everything youth, I never came to work thinking I just want to be the most worthless firefighter at this place, And so figuring out how they got from how they ended up there is the real mystery and challenge for a leader.
Yeah. And maybe there's a lot to that, maybe that's kind of part of the key to it is kind of reverse engineer what's going on, try to figure out, okay, so what led you to how you're feeling right now as far as you eat breakfast and go sit in a recliner? Was it a 30-year firefighter that was freaking lazy and just completely worn out with the job that you started to model when you were younger? Or was it problems at home that have just completely beat you down to where you don't have anything left when you come to work? I think there's a lot to be said with that. And, we touched on the parenting thing a second ago. I think just like parenting, you as a leader, you got to care for these people first off, but caring for them, you really need to dig into what's going on at home, and not that you're being nosy, but just, if these people are dealing with a lot of stuff at home that allows them to be drained when they get to work, then maybe they need some help with that.
Oh, it absolutely matters 100% what's going on at home. If they're not coming from a nice solid foundation there, then it's going to be trouble at the job. And just being plugged into that is a big responsibility that leaders have to take on, is being, and like you said, not nosy, not needing to know every little detail, but just being plugged into how secure their home life is.
Yeah. Yeah. So something kind of for me, you talked a little bit about what's kind of gotten you fired up and led you back on the right path. I think for me, especially this last go round, I know back about a year, a little less than a year ago, I got a new firefighter on my crew, and kind of up to that point, I was a fairly new captain, a year and a half on as a captain, and I was still kind of finding my way basically, and getting that new person really, man, it was almost like a switch flipped in me to realize I am totally responsible for getting this person where they need to be. I can totally check out and leave him where he is, and
Right.
he can end up being whatever the wind takes him, or I could step up and I could be responsible for making them a great firefighter. And man, that was really like a eye-opening event for me, for sure.
No, it's that responsibility as it settles on your shoulders of, I'm
Oh yeah.
responsible for how this guy turns out. No, it's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of people, and that seems to be a pretty common theme is, you get, if you're around the newer firefighters or people that are in recruit school or things like that, just that passion that they have is just, it soaks up into you.
Oh yeah.
You can't help but get some of that from them.
No, I did a speech or a presentation, whatever you want, at Fire Talks about the fire triangle or the passion triangle, and a big part of that, that it's the heat, the oxygen, and the fuel. And a big part of that was the heat that you're around. When you're stuck at a station where everybody's 10 toes up and relaxing, then there's no heat there. It's hard to burn. It's hard to burn with passion. But when you're around other young, fired up, or just fired up, that has nothing to do with age, but tend to be with rookies. But when you're around and you surround yourself with podcasts, books, rookies, training, that's a lot more heat, and it's easier to burn with that passion. So it's a great analogy, and definitely plugs into what we're talking about.
Yeah. So maybe kind of playing off that, and see if you even want to touch this, but so the idea spread the wealth in the fire department. I've heard that a lot. I've seen that a lot. So I have lost people on my crew to other crews because they wanted to, spread some of the positivity, spread
Right.
some of the passion and all that. So what do you, how do you feel about that? Where do you sit on that?
Man, I'm extremely torn on this, and it really depends. There's not an easy answer. I'll start there
Yeah.
and say
Yeah.
that I'm going to I'll kind of walk you down my thought process on it, which is there is something magical about being on a crew where everybody is plugged in and on the same page and moving in the same direction. When you have from the company officer down to the lowest guy, when they're all plugged in and clicking, it is amazing and just fun to come to work and beautiful to be a part of. And
Yeah.
if you're lucky, you get one of those crews in your career. If you're really lucky, you're on two of those crews throughout your career. And
Yeah.
so as I promoted into the battalion chief's role, right now am responsible for putting guys together on crews. That has become one of my driving factors, is putting guys together who have a chance to have that happen. And
Yeah.
I think Mark Davidson said it, or I'll get the wrong quote, but basically he says, when you get to this role, your job is to take care of the guys who take care of the guys. And so breaking that up and in the concept of, I'm going to take this piece out of here and move it over to this other crew and plug it in. And that's going to spread this synergistic, beautiful thing that's happening over here. I don't think it's that simple. And I think that it's like, it actually is counterproductive most of the time. Now, again, I always use always and never as, but that when you do that, you do more damage to the crew that was clicking along and humming along. You do more damage to that crew than you do by plugging in. Now, of course, in an ideal world, you would be able to create these perfect crews everywhere, but it's personalities and juggling and egos and all sorts of stuff going on. But that is ultimately my goal, is to try and create these little micro cultures at each station that are just clicking and humming and plugged into the vision of being the best crews that they can be for the Moore Fire Department.
Yeah. And I think, I've had this discussion with my bosses. I feel like more should be put in more weight should be placed on chemistry. You look at, if you want to compare it to a sports analogies, you got these professional teams that go buy their teams, just all these superstars and just freaking load up, and then they can't do crap. And I know that doesn't happen, more times than not, they are good, but sometimes you'll see that they're just junk. And it's not because they don't have superstars. It's because those superstars just don't know how to mesh together.
Absolutely.
And I've kind of seen that myself and have tried to voice my opinions on that there's been a couple times where I'm like, man, this person would fit a lot better with my crew. There's nothing wrong with that person. The other person you're trying to send, he's a great guy. He's a great firefighter, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it will be as good of a fit for us.
Right.
And I think that's a big deal. Kind of like you said, I mean, it's a big thing.
And it's just tough because in an ideal world, we'd get everything we want. And I know, I'm not trying to cop out on the answer at all, but I get the question a lot of times. We'll sit around the kitchen table and discuss, and then they say, hey, what would you do if you had this captain? Or what would you do if you had this lieutenant? And, ultimately, my job is to make them the best captain or lieutenant that they can be. I'm going to invest time into them. But obviously, if I had a choice, I don't want Captain X or Lieutenant Z, if I had complete control. But there's a difference between what you're responsible for and what you wish you could have. So, and if you can keep those two plugged in and say, well, this is my job and I'm going to make it the best it can be.
Yeah. You mentioned the sending, kind of breaking a team apart is kind of, kind of counterproductive with the crew that's performing so high. I think too, it could be counterproductive on that piece that you're moving out as well. If you got a guy that's super motivated and you think, hey, I'm going to send this guy over to this other crew and hopefully some of that will spread to the other guys. Well, what's the benefit if you send that guy over there and the negativity overtakes them? That's kind of another angle of that as well. Cause I see, I'm not associated with this example, and I'm obviously not going to give names, but there's a couple of these situations going on right now with our department, and it sucks. And I just hate seeing that. You got a person that wants to do a lot, wants to run a lot of calls and this and that. And so that sucks to see that.
No, absolutely. And that's the big part where you just have to be plugged into the personalities and the driving motivations of your different guys where possible. Span of control is a huge deal. That's why I think company officer is the greatest job in the fire service, because it is at the perfect spot where you have to invest in those 4 to 5, maybe 6 guys that are your crew and guys and gals. And that you can actually, and the span of control matters. That's where, as you move up in the organization, you get less and less of that one-on-one time to just dig into people. And that's where, like you said, you got to take care of the guys who take care of the guys and set them up for success. Yeah. As far as, I think you get a badass crew together and they're kicking along, and eventually that's going to lead to those guys promoting. And that is the natural progression of it spreading, because the promotion, and then they go on and they propagate it again. But just to get plucked out and moved, sometimes there's no option. I mean, operations.
No, I know. Yeah.
And it's just, so everything's a different situation. I'm not sitting here saying you should never happen or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
But it should be done. It's like pruning a tree. You know, it should be done with utmost care. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a dead, wilted, Charlie Brown looking thing.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you in a bad spot. I've had these conversations with my boss and, you know, battalion chief, and I know you're kind of on that level, and not to get you in trouble, but just to kind of get your thinking on it. And I know those situations when they have to happen and there's no win to it, it sucks. You know, it doesn't matter if you're the captain of the crew that's getting stripped, or if you're the guy getting stripped, or if you're the battalion chief and having to make the choice. It just sucks. And so you just gotta roll with it and make the best of it.
And you made a great point. You know, your article you wrote, Perspective, was a great point on this whole topic, because, you know, it does suck, but you have to keep that perspective of, hey, my job is, or whichever your perspective is, but whatever keeps you on track of, my job is, hey, this is my guy now. I love that guy and he's gone. My job is now to make him into the best version of himself he can be, and keeping that perspective. So, but yeah, everything is relationships, even with your battalion chief above you or your guys below you, and just having that, being able to build that trust with them and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is why, and then understanding and trusting them that what they're doing is best for the organization, even if it's not best for your crew at the time.
Yeah. That leadership is just tricky, man. That's one thing that I've kind of been listening to here lately, if I can find different stuff on, is just kind of the people aspect of it. You know, you hear so much about you gotta take this officer class, or you know, get good at size ups and all these tactical things that we hardly ever do. But what kind of personnel relationships and dealing with things like that, what do we do with that to get somebody trained? It's like nothing. You hopefully know how to deal with people when you go in, because that's all you got, is just what you got with you.
Right.
Man, I'm finding more and more that's really what we should be focusing on, preparing people for.
So if you Mark Davidson out of Fairfax County, he is unbelievable in his officer development of soft skills. Now, he says it straight out the gate. Hard skills matter. You got to have tactics. You got to be able to throw a ladder. You got to be able to stretch a hose. But and district chief, Boston Fire, Eric Pettaway, he says it best. He's like, number one way you can take care of your guys is to make sure they know how to do their jobs. And I love it when he's talking, know your district. And I love his accent and when he says that stuff. But you got to have the hard skills down. But the hard skills are easy. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the hard skills are easy because they're measurable.
Oh yeah. There's
a step A, step B, step C, and let's be honest, we're firemen. You throw a problem at us, we're going to go tackle it. You know, physical problems, and we're going to try our best to overcome it, and throw water at it, throw axes at it, throw saws at it. You know, throw apparatus at it. We're gonna get it done. But when you get to this, so that hard skills matter. That's the bread and butter of our. But now if those are done and those are taken care of, now let's talk about the soft skills. And this is the leadership development, the relationship development, and this is where we spend no time. In the fire service, generally speaking, because it isn't measurable. There isn't a step A, step B, step C, and it is just work to develop the soft skills. And so, if you find a book that explains it, let me know, because I'm all for it.
I think something else too. You talked about the hard skills are easy, and you know this and that. I think another angle that makes it harder for us to overcome is those things are fun. You know, it's fun to do those things.
Yes.
It's not fun to deal with personal relationship stuff. It's not fun to sit and really dig into problems that are going on in people's lives. It's just not fun. And so that makes it harder to do it. Yeah.
And I don't mean discipline in a bad way. I just mean discipline in trying to get a change in behavior. It's not fun. In fact, it is an extreme amount of work for incremental, like minuscule changes. And so, yeah, without a doubt. And so the big question I get probably most often online and talking to people is, what's the most important quality of a leader? You know, what's the most important quality of a leader? They ask that in some way. What's the best trait a leader should have? You know, and you could go down a rabbit hole just on discussing that. But it really is a trap question, because what's most important, what's the best trait, isn't necessarily what comes first. And so the real question is, what's the first thing a leader should be doing? And it all comes down to relationship building. It is like 100%. It starts with relationship building, because if you don't have that, then no one's following you anywhere. That's what leads to influence, which is what leads to trust. And then the cycle starts of building and building, getting bigger and bigger. So
I think that, go ahead.
No, that's it. That was just a small point.
That where you're going right there is huge to me, and huge to my message is influence. You know, influence over authority basically is kind of the way I like to look at it. And man, I know we're probably a long way from where we started, but that's fine. You know, I think that when you have that relationship with your crew, and there's trust there, and each party involved knows that each party cares about, you know, one another, man, that right there does all the work as far as the real hard choices, like on scene basically is kind of where I'm getting. And I just see a lot of younger leaders right now that just want to put this stern face on and, you know, get their authoritative officer voice, and you know, they don't hang out anymore, and they don't have fun with the guys and the firefighters anymore. I just hate that. I wish that people would kind of open their eyes to see that that's not how it has to be. You know, I feel like my crew, the most positive things that come from my crew are because I have a relationship with them, and I trust them, and I care about them, and they know all that. So they want to do their best to in turn take care of me.
Absolutely, dude. That's the key. I mean, it's cart and horse argument. It's chicken and egg argument, but man, it feeds on itself once it's in place and it starts growing, and it's awesome when it starts working.
Yeah.
The whole, you know, it's sad but there is just a lot of misconceptions, and I say misconceptions because everything is my opinion. So take it for what it's worth. If you got $4, in my opinion, you can buy a Starbucks coffee. But there's a lot of misconceptions. You know, can you be a leader and a friend? People say that all the time. You can't be a boss and a friend or whatever. And I understand where it comes from, because if you don't have that respect, then if you lose that respect by just being a buddy, then I actually understand. But the leader doesn't determine whether you're a friend or the buddy or boss, I think is what a lot of people say. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's the follower's complete choice, man. I can be a friend with all of my guys if they're willing to say, I will always keep my respect for you and I will always respect your authority. You know what I'm saying? And we can always be friends. Now, if we lose that, that's where the friendship has to go away, and I have to be a boss first because that's my responsibility. And so that misconception that you can't be both is completely wrong. It's just whose responsibility it lies on to keep it that way is what the message needs to be. And so, and man, there's just so much to, like what you said about the new officers and the stern face and the, I don't want to be wrong. And I've got to be, you know, Jocko touches on it so much in his podcast about, in his book, Extreme Ownership and Dichotomy, that you have to be willing to be wrong. You cannot take yourself too seriously. I don't know is one of the greatest things you can say as a leader. You know, I don't know. And it's okay to say that. You're not supposed to know everything. Now, I don't know. Let's go find out. You know, you have to follow it up with that. You have to go figure it out, and you had to get answers. But absolutely. I don't know where I was going. I went off on a tangent. Sorry.
That's all right. I think that's kind of the theme of the day here, but that's fine. Some really good stuff. I think kind of what I want to find out right now is, do you have any, and of course, again, not, you don't have to get into names or anything like that, but do you have situations as a leader that you can look back and say, this time I encountered a firefighter, driver, whatever it is, that was slacking, unmotivated, whatever, and I did this and it really helped? Do you have situations like that you can kind of
Man, I'm trying to think of, I know some of the biggest mistakes, most of what we're talking about, and as far as that goes, I've been responsible for. So one of the biggest mistakes, and I tell people this all the time, is complaints only go up. And I made the mistake of, when I was a lieutenant, I would complain to the guys below me about the guys above me. And that is one of the most toxic things and undermining things you can do to the people above you. And so it was a hard lesson to learn, but it directly contributed to lackadaisical and checking out. It basically contributed to a toxic culture. And so when you as the leader complain down to your guys, you allow them to complain. And that's complaints. Again, it comes down to attitude, and complaints are one of those things that eat passion, that make you lose sight of the mission when you're allowed to complain. Yep. And when you as a leader set that bar, then it becomes acceptable. And so when I say that, is when I have encountered that, it's because I was part of the problem, and I had to own that and then fix that, which in turn created it where I could then address the issue that I had created.
Yeah.
And again, it all goes back to personal responsibility. They're still responsible for their attitude, irregardless of my complaining, but I had to own what I was contributing.
Amazing. So I got chills right now on my arms, because I feel like you're talking exactly straight to me. And it's funny because I literally, I sat down with my crew a couple of days ago and really had a heart to heart, just kind of let's get fired up type conversation. And in that conversation, I was hopefully very honest in saying that exact thing. I have failed miserably at that. And I think it's very interesting you bring that up, because it almost, to me, feels like that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be focusing on how to motivate the unmotivated or inspire the uninspired. I think we should figure out how to fix ourselves to where it just happens.
Dude, you nailed it right there. Yes.
But yes, I have definitely struggled in griping and showing my frustration down. And I feel like, and kind of how I described it to them, is it's a thin line. I want to be honest with my crew. I want to be open with them if there's things going on that I'm frustrated with, personnel or relationship wise. I just want to have kind of those discussions. But at the same time, if those are gripe sessions, if those are me showing my irritation and displeasure with the above us, then that's not good, and I need to change that. And I appreciate you bringing that up. I know you didn't do it on purpose, but that's a big deal.
I think it's a recurring theme in the fire services is that, hey, ultimately, when you have a big issue, you're probably at the center of the issue. And it goes to, I'm a huge proponent of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. You asked me earlier, what changed in my life. Probably reading that book was probably the single biggest thing that impacted my life. But he talks about the circle of influence, the circle of concern, and how we spend most of our time in the circle of concern, when if we work in our circle of influence is where we actually get stuff done. And the number one thing about that is ourselves. And so when we are griping about whatever's happening over here, and we're usually part of the problem. So you nailed it right there.
Well, that's very interesting to me. It's just funny that I start this conversation and this idea looking to fix others, when obviously that's not what we should be doing. We should be trying to fix ourselves. And it's just, things like this are very interesting to me, that, it's not scripted. It's not meant to be like that. It's just certain conversations, certain sentences just hit you. And it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm not doing what I need to be doing. It's very obvious. I need to change. And so I think it's just something that I want to point out because it's interesting for
No, you're
sure.
spot on. And that's the thing is when you do focus on yourself, when you do focus on what you can control instead of what's out of your control, it's amazing how much it grows. And then you start affecting those things that you couldn't control before. But it's just because it's simple and it does not mean it's easy,
Oh no,
and that's
no.
such a tough transition to get to. But the biggest thing about changing others is bottom line is you can't. If you really get down to it, you cannot make a person care. Now you can order someone to do something, but you can't order them to care. And if you could, then this whole leadership thing would be easy. We wouldn't be, there wouldn't be podcasts and books and seminars on it. If you could just say, hey, I order you to care. Okay, got it, Chief. So ultimately, you have to figure out how to make them want to care. And that's where the relationship building and understanding their motivation really comes down to, what we're talking about here. You got to figure out it's deeper than changing someone. It's figuring out how to make them want to change, which we go back full circle to where we started. How did they lose sight of this is the greatest job on earth?
Yeah. And that's, I wish I remembered how it's stated, but I heard a while back the difference between motivation and inspiration. And it's kind of what you're saying, motivation is just something that kind of comes and goes, and you're basically pushing somebody to do something they don't want to do. But inspiration is basically getting them in the mindset that's what they want to do, and it's their choice. They're being inspired to do that on their own.
Right.
And like I said, I'm totally
Right.
butchering
I get the
that,
point. Yeah.
but it's big. I kind of almost hate using the word motivation anymore because it's so fragile, and it's here one day, it's gone the next, and you're depending on somebody else for that to be there. And so, yeah, I think kind of that's the mindset, is just trying to figure out, like you said, how to instill that inspiration and let them make that choice on their own.
No, yeah. Eisenhower, I love his quote, and he says leadership is getting people to do what you want because they want to do it. And it's just such a great, because it sounds selfish at first, like getting
That's
people to
huge.
do what you want, but it's because they want to do it. That's
yeah.
Leadership, Jeremy. I'm not telling you anything, but it is the single most rewarding thing you can do is to lead other people, but it's also probably the single most frustrating thing you can try to bite off and chew on. You can do so many things right and then mess up and just take a step, and it's just
blow it all out of the water,
it's just so but it's so rewarding when it starts working. And so
well, I think I like how this has kind of gone full circle. We started out in a direction, we kind of trailed to another direction, and then almost circled back, but in a total different direction. it's been exactly kind of what I figured. Yeah, it's been a little kind of all encompassing, and I think very helpful to me, and I hope very helpful to everybody else. Is there kind of anything else that you want to touch on around that subject? Or
and again, we start at the beginning of, we have a mission, save lives and property, and we come into this job excited about it, and it's the greatest job on earth. We get to come hang out, do physically demanding stuff, and then go help people. And if you have the ability to make it where guys and gals hate coming to work, you're a special kind of butthole. And so it's put in the work, build the relationships, and make it to where people are just excited to come to work. And when you do that, the hard skills will take care of themselves. If they're excited to come to work, I promise you, they'll get out there and throw ladders. They'll get out there and hump hose when they're excited to come to work. So you have to start with their motivations and build those relationships, and that then it will get to what's most important. That's kind of my wrap up.
That's good. That's kind of what I say is, like you said, it's the best job in the world, and you got to really try to make it not fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's easy to make this job fun, and then it's a lot of work, but the work to even take it to the next level is really worth it. So,
And I'm not talking. I'm sorry to talk. I'm not talking about Hey, let's make it easy, guys. We'll just show up. We'll put.
Oh yeah,
put the DVDs in. We'll get on Netflix and watch. I'm not saying make it fun in that regard, like no work. Absolutely not about that at all. So
no, I get that.
Yeah, and I know you're not, but I wanted to be clear. It's not about making it relaxing spa time. Let's rub each other's shoulders today. It's not about that at all. It's about So just to be clear.
No, it's fine. And I think that's kind of, just try not to go too far into it. But if you can figure out a way to make those things that you're wanting to do fun, make the host training fun, make the search drills fun, make the, whatever, that's where it really starts exploding right there. If you can turn those things into fun, then you got the winning lottery number right there.
You're not kidding, man. Especially, yeah. And then when they're plugged into the why, Simon Sinek and his Start With Why.
Yes.
When you get them plugged into the why we're doing this, they're no longer saying, why the hell are we doing this bullshit drill? When they're plugged into the why, they're not asking, they're looking for ways to improve it. They're like, how about we try this? How about we try this?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. I think we got it pretty good for at least this time, and definitely want to find something else and get together again for sure.
Dude, I had a lot of fun. So anytime you want to just talk, whatever, I'm down. So, and I'm going to have you on the scrap here, probably sometime in September if you're open for it.
Cool. Yeah, definitely make it work. So, give us some plugs. You got your scrap, you got your Firehouse Vigilance, you got your book. Go ahead and kind of tell us where we can find you and any other pertinent information you want to get out.
firehousevigilance.com. Reach out to me. Anything you want, comments. And I love just talking to people, interacting with people. It's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Firehouse Vigilance everywhere. Of course, with COVID-19 and everything going on in the world right now, there's not a whole lot going on besides, Zoom meetings and online conferences. But I'm excited for the future and getting everything going. The book, Challenge Your Leadership, it will be coming July 11th, 2020, Amazon.com, and of course, firehousevigilance.com. So that's all my plugs. I always like to talk about the Vigilant Creed and the Firehouse Vigilance and the Vigilant Creed. And that is, I'm trying to get a firefighter in all 50 states. We're at 37 states right now. So I don't know the list of the 13 that we don't have. I know Hawaii and Alaska and a few. But anyway, long story short, firehousevigilance.com. Sign the Vigilant Creed. Send me a picture so I can add you. I want to get all 50 states. So anyway, a lot of stuff.
I was about to say that for you. I knew you're trying to kind of close that up. So definitely get on the website. He's got a map that shows exactly what states are not filled. So if you're in that area, then
it's not. There's no money involved. People ask me, what do I have to do? I have to pay dues? I'm like, no, there's no money involved at all. It is strictly a commitment to excellence, man. It is a commitment to each other. I'm going to be, and I'll just say this because I don't want to. Complacency is what the Firehouse Vigilance is, the never-ending fight against complacency. And the Vigilant Creed is just a commitment to say, I will not become complacent in this job. And so anyway, I don't want to get on a soapbox and start preaching about complacency.
That's good. Always good stuff for sure. And I appreciate your time and definitely look forward to what I have in the future as well. So look forward to what that brings.
Hey, I appreciate it, Jeremy. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. And as far as everybody else out there, thank you again for spending some time with us today. I hope we said something that really kind of speaks to you and gives you some benefit. And until next time, stay safe and take care of each other. Thank you.